Hello everyone, and welcome to Part C of Programming Languages. I'm excited to have you back, and let me introduce you to the course so that we can get started. As you should know, both Parts A and B of Programming Languages already covered a whole lot of material, and now this is a chance to build on it, finish the story, and introduce a couple of key contrasts and comparisons with where we've been before. A quick note, of course, if you haven't finished Part A and Part B, this really is a continuation, as I've tried to make clear in the online materials. So we will assume, as we get into Part C, that we can rely on the material in Part A and Part B. But I, of course, know that for some of you, there may be a bit of a gap since you finished up the previous material, and you'll have the opportunity as needed to go back and refresh the ideas, of course. I want to remind you, as I do in each part of the course, that this is a challenging opportunity to learn the fundamental concepts of programming languages, and it's kind of a logistical accident that each part of the course uses a different programming language. But that said, in Part C, we'll primarily be using Ruby as an example of a dynamically typed object-oriented language. But as you'll see, we'll be able to compare it to ML and Racket at some key points as we study the concepts in the weeks ahead. So in terms of what we're going to do here in Part C, I encourage you to participate even if you are familiar with object-oriented programming. And conversely, if you're not, I think we'll be able to introduce objects and the key ideas behind them as a moderate departure from the sort of functional programming and semantics that we've seen up to this point in our three-part course. As we move into the material, I have another video giving the overview in detail, but mostly we're first going to learn some basic Ruby, some interesting features that it has, in particular focus on object-oriented programming. Then we'll be able to finally do that contrast between functional programming and the objects, or OOP. Then we'll learn some more advanced object-oriented features and idioms, study things beyond just the basics of class-based object-oriented programming. And then the last week of the course, we'll return to static typing and look at subtyping, which is a very powerful static typing idea in the object setting, and contrast that with the sort of polymorphic types, the generic types that we saw in ML. So as we did in Part B, we're basically just going to dive in. Of course, you have a little bit of work to do to install Ruby and start editing files and that sort of stuff. But we're hopeful that that won't be too difficult, even though the instructions differ per operating system and version of Ruby quite a bit. And then you'll be able to just dive in to our third programming language and third part of the course and get started on learning the key ideas of object-oriented programming. So again, welcome, and let's get going.